Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Dennis. So today's video we're going to do a build inside the Fractal Design Meshify C TG, which just basically stands for tempered glass, case. So we're going to put everything together. So let's go over the parts. I'll show you the case here in a minute, and which I did a video for just recently. And I'll show you what's everything that's going to go into it, all the different components. Except for the graphics card, I'm going to have to come up. I might have to buy another graphics card to put in it. And have to decide what I can afford. So it's probably going to be somewhere around the 2060 or 2070, maybe a super. So anyhow, let's get on and show you what's going to go into all this. And then I'll show you the build. So here we go. So this is the case itself. Very good airflow, top and bottom. And everything is going to go inside with the shroud, everything. Anyway, you can look over the, I'll put a link to the video I did reviewing this case. You can have a look at that. And basically, everything else that's going to go into it is out sitting on my test bench, so I'll go show you. Okay, so here's everything that's in it. Now, I've already got an M.2 NVMe Kingston 512 gigabyte M.2 drive. This is a GTX 950, I believe it's a 950 graphics card, but we may use that temporarily. We've got the MSI MPG X570 Gaming Edge with Wi-Fi, HX 1050 power supply, Wraith Prism cooler, and just a couple sticks of memory, 16 gigabyte to 8 gigabytes. I'm not going to use the SSD here. It's a 240. I use that basically on my test system. Anyway, we'll put that all together, transfer everything into the case, and hopefully everything will go pretty good. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is put in my power supply. On the back of here, there's two thumb screws which this comes off. I'm going to take that off here. All right. I believe these are adaptive. Yep. So now that's going to go on here like this. So before I put that on, I'm going to feed all my cables through, put the power supply in here, because you'll have to fasten 4 screws in here anyway, because that bracket goes on here. I'll show you all that as we go along. So let's start with feeding the cables inside the case. I've already got most of the cables I know I'm going to need on here. So we're going to feed them in. Or push them in, whatever you want to call it. Lay them out the side, and we'll sort this all out as we go. Okay, so we're in here. If we line that one up, that'll kind of get us going in the right direction. Okay, I'm not going to tighten that completely. This one in. And last but not least. Okay, now we'll tighten it. Now, slide that in. Okay. Okay, so once you've lined up this, you can just tighten this. Secure it to the frame. There's our power supply, good and go. Power supply is installed. And we're going to fit our standoffs, because we have to position our standoffs, put them all in here, so that they're in the right spot. So there's one standoff in here, we're going to have to put in the rest. So, rule of thumb, a lot of times they're labeled in here, so you can see which is ATX or not. If not, you fit the motherboard in, and then you'll be able to figure out where everything goes. Now with this, the I/O shield is built on, so I'm not have to put that in. It's going to go in when I put the motherboard in, just so you know. Okay, so through the magic of editing, I went ahead and I put the standoffs in. I didn't secure them, like make sure they're all real fastened down. But one thing you're going to find with this particular motherboard is I'm going to show it to you here, as best I can, is the standoff for screwing it in fits underneath of this. Now, the reason they did it is because in this particular case, and a lot of cases like this, the standoff is already there and there is nothing to screw it in. It just helps the motherboard set in place. All right, so I've got it fitted here. You can see all the brass. That's the standoffs. So I'm going to position the motherboard. Hopefully it all fits. If I've got it right, then I can move on and actually secure the standoffs, secure the motherboard, and move on. So here's hoping. We're going to dry fit this. Okay, so we're going to carefully take this back out. And we got our nice little device that goes on the top of our screwdriver, so we can go in and make sure that these are all nice and tight. You don't want to over tighten, because if you strip them, well, then you got an even bigger problem. Now, another thing about the standoffs being other than black is actually a nice feature. But when I was trying to dry fit it, I could see the color going through. So I could tell if I was lining it up properly or not. So just another little thing to be aware of. So we're going to go and put our motherboard in. So the thing I do as well is I go to the back where the I/O shield is, because when those are built on, sometimes you have to make sure they're lining up properly. Most of the time they're going to. You shouldn't have any problem. Now the reason the cooler is already on is I already installed that previously. So I'll put a link to that as well so you can see how to install that. It's the Ryzen 5 3600X, just in case anybody's wondering. And let's get our first standoff secured. I want to do this one. I'll feel better once I know that's in there good. Now you don't have to snug these down too tight. You don't want to snug them down too tight. If you do, again, you're having a problem if you put them too tight. When you go to take out your motherboard, you could cause the standoffs, no matter how tight you put them, because you've tightened it too much, that they're all going to turn at the same time, and you're not actually going to be able to get it out. That's it. All done. Motherboard is in there. Power supply is in there. Already got our memory installed. You need to know how to do that? Well, let me know. I can do a separate video for you. But putting in memory is pretty simple. Thing to remember is put it in banks 2 and 4, and then 1 and 2. Unless you're populating all 4, then just put them in where you want. And you have your SATA banks here. We're going to feed all our cables through. We've got little places here. It's going to come up. I know from experience using a case similar to this before that this is going to be kind of tight. Okay, so something I did just to rewire it differently, and I wanted to show you, because I get a couple questions on this every now and then, and just wanted to point it out. Now, your cable from a Wraith Prism, I wish it was just a little longer, but I was able to take it up, take it around the back, okay, took it straight up, or rather straight down, fed it through the little opening in the bottom, and was able to get it into the USB. It's in there pretty snug, but it's not coming out. It certainly is not going to yank out anytime soon. So, thought that you might like to see that. Kind of a nice little feature, if you will. And then I tucked the cable. You can't see the cable really. Just tucked it up underneath where it says MPG. I tucked it underneath there a little bit. And of course, don't worry about that. That's just the fan. And I'll figure out a way to hide that later on as well. Okay, so something to also remember. When you're looking at your fans, you got this little cutout kind of thing here going on. And if you look at where your fans are, you've got the same little thing. So as long as this lines up with where you're plugging your fan in, okay, that little tab, it'll go on, no real problem. So now, when I take this, tuck it back underneath, then I'll clean it up a little bit. We'll have to figure it out in the back, how we're going to clean that up in the back. But for now, that'll hide our cable. Now, at this point, I may install another hard drive, and of course I've got the graphics card to go back in, but I think we're going to go and do our power supply. Okay, so we fed our cable through the back. We're going to put it in our 24 pin here. We got our little tab. Make sure that your tab here goes on, and this will click on. All right, so line them up best you can. It's a little tricky, don't worry about it, but just be sure you got it in. If it's not in right, well, then you're gonna have problems. Okay, so once it's there, push, and just, here, hear that little click? I don't know if you heard that or not, but anyway, once that's there, you're good. Trust me, it does not come off easy. It does not come off easy at all. So, next thing is we're going to feed our CPU power cable up through the top, plug it in up here, and we'll be good to go. Okay, so our CPU cable, make sure it says CPU, feed it up through here. Okay, so just push it in, it'll go. Okay, you can grab it from the other side. Okay, so we'll put our cable in there, make sure the tab is on the top, or unless it's faced, it's usually on the top. Push that in, feed your cable back through, and now you can see we don't have a lot of mess of cables here. You know, there will be a lot in the back, but for the most part, everything is coming together pretty good. So we got to do our case cables. I'm going to add a power supply, and then we'll put our GPU in, and we will pretty much be done. Okay, so the only thing I have left to do now is add the hard drive. I decided to put a 2 terabyte for storage on top of the NVMe. And my graphics card, and of course the 2 antennas for the Wi-Fi, which I'll put on last. And that's going to be it for this build, really. Of course, there's all the cable management for hooking up the case. I'm going to show you that too, just because some people seem to have some issues with it. So, not a problem. Start off with showing you this is the USB 3.0 right there. These are the front panel connectors. But we're going to start, we don't need to put in the anything else yet, but I actually think I'm going to be able to put in the graphics card. So first thing I have to do with the graphics card is just take out the second 2 slots and remove this plate and then insert it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so we'll start here. Now that may fall down, but there's nothing for it to get in the way of, so I don't really care too much. All right, that's one. And we'll try and just take that out. Oh, it's interesting. The second one down is actually, the next one down is actually holding it in place, which you don't see too often. Okay, so we'll undo that one. As soon as you undo it, you can feel that move. So I'm just going to leave it there, capture that before it falls. And you can keep those for spares in case you need it for the case later on. And now we'll just take out this one. And no problem, it just fell onto the shroud. So we're all ready. Graphics card, just make sure you insert this into this slot and see the little, there's like a little split there. So that's why there's a split here in your card. Okay, and this has a 6 pin, and we're just going to put it in place. We're going to use this to kind of hide our cable. So we're going to have to be careful how we do this, mind you. But we're going to basically put it underneath, and that'll hide that cable and get it out of the way. And you hear that click in place, and we're good. So now, you can't see the cable there, and it's kind of tucked in out of the way down below. Good to go. So we are going to have to feed one PCIe cable up through here, and the rest will come in through these little slots. But before we do that, now we're going to put in our hard drive. So we are going to need only one PCIe. So I'm going to keep it. Okay, PCIe. Okay, and we're going to get rid of the other ones. We're just going to tuck them away. But we're going to do that after we take out and put in our hard drive down here. So we're going to do that first. Okay, so you can see the 2 holes here. If you look inside, you line them up with the holes on the inside. Same thing on this side. And once we've got them in there, it's going to go in like this. And you'll notice that little L shape here and here. So SATA cable goes in here, and the other one, the SATA power cable goes in here, and the other SATA cable goes in here. This one connects to the motherboard, and that one's to the power supply. So just so you know. These screws are provided. All right. They're a little longer than normal. That's because when you're putting them in here, you need that extra little reach. And once you get to a certain point, it's just going to stop, and you'll know it's in the right spot because it won't let you go beyond that. You're going to put it back in like so. Okay, so before I put my hard drive in, I just put the power cable on. It goes in here real nice. You can see once I tie it off, it tucks in here, and you slide that down a little bit. It's going to go on. You're going to have lots of room. We're going to get our cables, push them all underneath if I can put them in here underneath the power supply shroud. And we're going to take our case cables and our fan. We have to take the fan, take the twist tie off, and do all that. That should go pretty good. So I'm going to do all the cables. I'll show you what that looks like when I'm mostly done, and we'll go from there. Okay, so this is our USB 3.0 cable. You get that little divot there, little tab. So that's how you know it's going to go on. It only goes on one way. So we're just going to feed this through. I just popped it into the other side. And then we'll work on that afterward. And I'm going to undo the twist tie here. Again, 3-pin for the power. Would rather it been 4. Okay, so we're going to feed this through, and we're going to have to find out where we can plug that one in. You can see how the cables are kind of starting to go away on their own. We're going to take all our case cables here. We're going to feed those through as well once we figure out where they can go. HD audio is pretty easy to figure out. I know where these all go. Those are all front panel. All these little ones here, all the small ones. All these little ones. Now I'm going to get them out of the way of the power supply cable, just so you're not having to worry about those later on. So I'm going to take them all out. Get them all out of there. HD audio as well. And then we can sort those out later. Okay, so I've kind of niced up the cables a little bit. And what I did is I took the SSD plate off as well. It has 2 little catches, okay? And there's 2 little notches, one here, one down here. And I'm just going to put it back in afterward. Lots of play on this. So the only thing you might have to do down the road, you might have to just take off the USB at some point if you decide to put an aftermarket cooler on. This will come off. You probably can fit it underneath, but either way, you're going to have to take our bracket off. So a little bit of work, but not that much. And these cables go in there really nice, tuck underneath. So there's lots of room for cable management. By the way they built and designed the case. If the case wasn't designed as nicely as it is, you'd have more problems. So what's left, we're going to go with plugging in our SATA cable, which is going to go in here for the power. So you just make sure you line up that L. Line it up in here. Now be careful, don't force it. It should just go in pretty easy. Sometimes it goes in so easy you don't know it's in. But it's in now. Okay? You can wiggle it a little bit, whatever. So now we're going to just tuck this cable up in there out of the way again. So the only other thing we're going to need is our SATA cable. So same thing goes with that. Put your SATA cable down here, line it up. Hear that little click. We're going to run this in here to our SATA port. I've fed all the other cables up underneath in here. Our HD audio up through the other side. And just tied some of this off a little bit nicer. I still got a little bit of work to do on that. So we're going to put our SATA cable through in here, bring it in from the other side, and we're going to tidy this all up. And then we should be pretty much ready to go after that. Okay, so I've tucked all our cables in underneath here. Everything sits flush. Like if you were to put the case on right now, you wouldn't be touching anything. But I don't want to do that yet because I'm going to still want to make that a little nicer. So we're going to go to the other side. And this is where all our cables are right now. So of course this is our PCIe cable. Okay, which is going to go for our 6-pin for power. Alright, so it should say PCIe on here. So PCI-E. And that's just going up here. Don't connect that first. Make that your last thing you do. In fact, sometimes you don't even want to put the graphics card in there yet because it might get in the way of everything else. So we're just going to sort this out. We'll do our SATA cable first. Hear that click? Hopefully you saw that. There's a little click makes it go in. So now we can just tuck this all back out of the way. This is our USB 3.0, which is down here. But I'm going to do that last as well. In fact, I'm just going to set it on here. Won't hurt anything. Leave that out of the way. This is our fan. So we got to figure out a place to plug that in. And this is where I said before that all the fan headers are on the bottom. So in actual fact, I'm going to take that out, run it through the bottom in here, and plug into one of our fan headers. So verify where you're plugging everything in. Verify this is your front panel connectors. So I'm going to do that right now and make sure. Okay, so just for anybody that is interested in, that is the front panel connectors where I showed you a minute ago. Here's how they all go on, okay? Just in case you're interested. So when you're looking at it, you're looking, so the top two, positive and negative. Okay, so power, PLED, power switch, down the bottom left, your hard drive, and to the right of that is your reset switch. And this one is reserved, which almost is never used. Maybe one day it'll be used for something. So I'm going to go ahead, plug everything in here, and plug in our fan down here. Plug our HD audio. It's going to go right on the very left-hand side. Further, right here. So on the very left most that you can get. So we're going to go ahead and do that. It's kind of hard to show you, so I've done videos on it. And you can have a look at those, how to connect your front panel connectors to your motherboard. And that'll explain it all. So, okay, so our front panel connectors are on here. Connected our fan here. Now, I understand now why they put all the fans on the bottom. Is because everything is feeding up through here in the bottom anyway. And they didn't really make allowances for too many places. And if you have all the other cables going through, well, now you got cables and then they're all in the way. So the only thing left to do here is PCI cable, USB 3.0. So again, don't forget that little tab. Okay, you'll see a little divot on the top here. So just bend it and put it in. Hopefully you can see this. If not, that's okay. And it's a little snug, so you'll hear that little click. That click means it's in. A little louder than I'm used to hearing, but that's okay. So anyway, we're going to plug in our cable to here. We'll have power to everything at that point. Tidy up the back, and we'll move on. So make sure you loop this tab here, this tab here. Simply go in here, plug it in. You'll know, you'll see it. Well, in this particular case, you'll see it. And you're good to go. Overall, inside of the case looks pretty good. So let's move on to the back and do a little more cable management, and we'll come back. So a little playing around, and one thing I noticed that I forgot about is you have another USB 3.0 over here, which means you can slide it straight through and you don't even have to use that one. But it's there as a spare should you need it. Well, clean up your cable. Now, this one's here. I decided to kind of tuck it under, but I don't know. I haven't decided if there's a way to clean that up a little bit better. Everything's in now. Everything is plugged in at the bottom. And it looks pretty sharp. I'll show you the back here. Let me just zoom back out. So we look at the back. And the only cable that we have in the way, let me just see if I can show you that, is the USB cable. So when it plugs in here, so now we have to tuck that out of the way a little more. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to tuck it back out of the way and fire it up, make sure it works. Okay, so I'll fix that up. Just slid on nice and smooth. Tighten that up. Now there's one thing I forgot to do, I'm just going to show you, is I put one in here, but I forgot to put both screws in. So we're just going to put that in here now. You have to put that on there, especially for the bigger cards, because if you don't do that, well, you're going to have sag. You may have sag anyway, because some of these newer cards are just monstrous. So you may have to get one of those things that can go on here and hold it up so that you don't have sag. But with cards like this, you don't have to worry about it. So give you a quicker look again here. Okay, so there's a look at the inside. Pretty clean, except for this one cable. So if I could get rid of that. And you know what? In actual fact, if it was a longer graphics card, you wouldn't have hardly anything coming out. It's just because it's so short. So if I replace it with a newer one, that won't be an issue anymore. Well, we're going to plug in the power, turn everything on, and make sure it's all working. Okay, moment of truth time. Make sure the power supply is turned on, and let's hit our button. Well, it's a good start. Let's see if we get anything on the screen here. Now with an AMD build, it does take a little bit, so be patient. There we go. You can see it booting up. Our NVMe drive is on there, so it should go right to Windows. So there we are. It's up and going. Alright everybody, so that's a quick overview, quick build. I've done individual components like I said before. I'm going to put those at the end of the video so you can click on whatever one you want to see, whether it be the cooler, whatever it happens to be. Case install just came out, so that's there already. You can go back and look at that. What's the previous video? And that's it. So if you like it, hit that like. If you don't, you know what to do. Hit that bell for future notifications. And thanks for watching. Take care. See you in the next one.